All right, can you let them know who's live?
All right, Chair Freeman, we're ready to go.
Thank you, Alana. This is Chair Freeman, and I would just like to call this meeting to order at 6:04 p.m. I will note that to remind our board that the meeting is being live streamed on the TJCOG website, and to identify yourselves by name each time you speak during the meeting to comply with virtual meeting laws. And also note that the state, all votes will be conducted by roll call to comply with laws around virtual meetings, and Haskins will call roll call each time a vote is needed. Chantel, if you could call roll call for attendance.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Chair Freeman. Just want to welcome everybody, guests, staff, board members. It is so wonderful to see everyone in 2023. And just thank you for everyone just being so gracious as me being clerk and just always so responsive and communicative. So I never get a chance to say thank you, so thank you. All right, so we're going to go ahead and as I say your jurisdiction, please say if you are here. For attendance, the delegate and alternate, please let me know if you are here. Thank you. And let's see. Aberdeen.
Will Mulaney here.
Thank you. Anger. Apex.
Here.
Thank you. Archer Lodge. Benson.
Here, Jerry Medlin.
Thank you. Broadway. Cameron.
Donald Andrews, Broadway.
Okay, thank you.
Broadway.
Thank you. Good to have you. Cameron. Scarborough. Carthage. Cary.
Jennifer Robinson here.
Thank you. Chapel Hill. Chatham County.
Mike
Clayton.
Dasher here.
Oh, okay. Clayton. City of Durham.
Deidreana Freeman, present.
Thank you. Durham County. Fuquay Varina. Garner.
Ken Morris, present.
Thank you. Hillsborough.
Kathleen Ferguson, Hillsborough, present.
Thank you. Holly Springs. Johnson County.
Holly Springs here.
Okay. And
Butch Lauder, Johnston County here.
thank you both. Kinley. Nightdale.
Nightdale, Jessica Day here.
Thank you. Lee County.
Bill Carter, Lee County.
Thank you. Micro. Moore County. Morrisville.
Steve Rao here for now. There's no call-in number. I wanted to call in while I'm driving because I have an emergency.
Yes, I just emailed, I emailed it to the full board.
Okay, okay. All right,
Mhm.
thank you. I will call in, but I'm here.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. Orange County,
Jamesetta Bedford, Orange County. Alternate filling in for Sally.
thank you so much. Pond Level. Pinehurst,
Jeff Morgan here for Pinehurst.
thank you. Pittsburgh,
Pamela Baldwin, present Pittsburgh.
thank you. Princeton. City of Raleigh. Robbins. Roseville. Sanford,
Rebecca Salmon, present.
thank you. Selma. Siler City. Smithfield,
Smithfield, Andy Moore here.
thank you. Southern Pines. Bass. Wake County,
Susan Evans here.
thank you. Wake Forest,
Chad Siri, Wake Forest here.
thank you. Wendell,
Joe DeLoach, Wendell, I am here.
thank you. Wilson's Mills,
David McGowan, Wilson's Mills here.
thank you. Zebulon.
Lita Bird, the alternate here, Wilson Mills.
Wilson. Thank you and hello.
Hello.
Zebulon. Is there anyone that I may have missed?
Did you catch Selma Byron McAllister?
I got you now. Thank you.
Followed by pound.
Yeah. Let me make sure. Is there anybody in the waiting room? Heidi Carter's. I'm just like.
In the meeting, you are muted. You can mute or.
Okay. And okay. Durham County. Okay. Okay. Is there? I'm just going back to make sure for roll call. If I missed anyone, I think we just admitted a few. This is just roll call for attendance. Okay.
This is Durham County. I'm here.
Okay. Thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Zebulon.
Here.
Okay. All right. Whew. Okay. Sounds good. Let me just double check. And Chair, we do have a quorum. It's our chair. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. I
Okay.
appreciate it. So just asking you all, I think you've all received the agenda, if you could review it, and if there aren't any changes, just checking, then I'll ask for a approval for the current agenda.
Move to approve as presented. And this is Kathleen Ferguson speaking.
Andy
Thank
Moore
you.
from Smithfield, I'll second.
Okay, so
Thank
the
you.
first Kathleen, second is Andy. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And the next agenda item we have is for the Village of Whispering Pines, our membership request. And this is an action item. I want to ask for a motion to approve membership request for Whispering Pines.
Oh, with pleasure. Move to approve. And this is Kathleen Ferguson.
Second
Thank-
from Jennifer Robinson.
Motion.
Thank you.
Jennifer,
And
Kathleen and Jennifer.
I'll call for a roll call vote.
Motion, Kathleen. Jennifer, second. Okay. Okay, this is motion to approve Village Whispering Pines. Okay, I will, so only one vote per jurisdiction. Aberdeen.
Wilma Laney votes aye.
Thank you. It's a few people. Andrew. Apex.
Brett Gant, aye.
Archer Lodge, Benson,
Jerry Medlin, Benson.
Broadway,
Broadway agrees. Say aye.
Cameron, Carborough, Carthage, Cary,
Jennifer Robinson votes aye.
Chapel Hill, Chatham County,
Mike Dasher, aye.
Clayton, City of Durham,
Deidreana Freeman, aye.
Durham County,
Heidi Carter, aye.
Fuquay Varina, Garner,
Ken Marchman, I vote aye.
Hillsborough,
Kathleen Ferguson, Hillsborough, aye.
Holly Springs,
Tim Forrest, Holly Springs, aye.
Johnson County, okay, I'll circle back. Kenley, Nightdale,
Nightdale, aye.
Lee County,
Bill Carver, aye.
Micro, Moore County, Mooresville,
Aye, Steve Brown, Morrisville. Steve
Orange
Brown,
County.
Morrisville, aye.
Thank you. Orange County,
Aye, Bedford.
thank you. Pine Level, Pinehurst,
Pinehurst, aye.
Pittsboro,
Pittsboro, Pamela Baldwin, aye.
Princeton, City of Raleigh, Robbins, Roseville, Sanford,
Rebecca Salmon, aye. Sanford,
Selma,
Byron McAllister, aye.
Siler City, Smithville,
Andy Moore, aye.
Southern Pines, Bass, Wake County,
Susan Evans, aye.
Wake Forest,
Chad Surrey, aye.
Wendell,
Joe DeLoach, Wendell, aye.
Wilson's Mills,
David McGowan, Wilson's Mills, aye.
Zebulon.
Larry Laux, Zebulon, aye.
Thank you. Is there anyone that may have missed for vote for Village of Whispering Pines membership request?
This is Butch Lauder, Johnston County, and you didn't miss me. I had trouble with my technology, but I vote aye as well.
Okay, no worries. Anyone else I may have missed? All right, I'm just checking. And we have a unanimous vote to accept Village of Whispering Pines as a member to TJCOG. This brings us to 47.
Great.
Thank you, Chair.
And I just want to quickly say that we are thrilled to have Whispering Pines as a member. We've actually been working with them a little bit over the past couple of years with their manager. So excited to have them as a member and continue our work with them. If Delegate Vandercook or Roberts are on Zoom, which I think one may be, we look forward to meeting you in person, and welcome to TJCOG.
Thank you. Thank you. This is Vandercook from Whispering Pines.
Thank you. And if you'd like to say anything, please do. You have a chance. So.
I guess I don't have a prepared speech, but I really appreciate the support of the group voting us in, and I look forward to a good relationship working together.
Thank you. Welcome. And since you've been voted in, you will have a chance to vote on the additional items tonight. So just want to make you aware of that.
Thank you. And we are excited to have you, as Jenny mentioned, Just moving us along, the introduction of new TJCOG staff. Jenny?
Thank you, Chair Freeman. So since July, we have had several new staff. We are trying to space them out with our introductions. So some of the staff that you will meet tonight have been with us for several months now, but we would like to spend some time and introduce them. So I'm going to hand it over to Matt Day, Director of Transportation, to introduce two new transportation team members.
All right. On our transportation team, we actually have had quite a few new folks start up, but we're going to introduce two of them to you tonight. The first one is Annie Lee, and Annie works primarily on our Triangle Clean Cities project, so working with alternative fuels and clean energy and electric vehicles and things like that. And I'm going to pass it over to Annie, who I think is online. Hopefully.
Good evening, I'm here. Yes, I'm Annie Lee. I was actually born and raised here in Raleigh. After college, I wound up moving all over, primarily to the coast, and returned to the Triangle about 4 years ago. Originally, I was actually trained to be a middle school and high school science teacher, which I did for about 10 years. I earned a master's degree in education and scientific literacy, and then went on to complete 2 fellowships with UNC's Institute for the Environment. One was in climate change by NASA, or funded by NASA, and the other was in energy technologies with an emphasis on the grid system with Duke Energy. This was also through the UNC Institute Institute for the Environment. Before this position, I worked for the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality for a couple of years, specifically in the Division of Air Quality, where I helped with education initiatives. I focused on work with the Clean Energy Plan and education and climate change education efforts for educators specific to North Carolina. In this role, as Matt mentioned, I'm primarily working as the Clean Cities co-director. Well, they've changed the title now. We're no longer co-coordinators. We're now co-directors. Again, all things alternative fuels, also with the Clean Fuel Advanced Technology grant that is operated out of NC State, as well as the Drive Electric USA project. In my spare time, I am a mom of 3 kids, and we love to spend our time outdoors. So I do a lot of hiking, a lot of backpacking and caving, as well as kayaking. I train, so pretty much anything that's outdoors and generally with my kids. So.
Thank you, Annie. I'll say Annie has jumped right into her duties at TJCOG and quickly coming up to a career transition that has done very well for her. So. Next up, we have Josh Michael.
All right, and so Josh is also on our transportation team. He works primarily with our travel demand management program called Triangle Transportation Choices. And he also works with us on our regional MPO transportation planning support project. So I'll turn it over to Josh.
Good evening, everyone. Nice to meet you all. My name is Michael, and as Matt mentioned, I am a transportation program analyst with TJCOG. Born and raised in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, moved to the Triangle in 1998. Before I joined TJCOG, I was lucky to work for the town of Wake Forest, where I did both development and long-range planning. I issued residential permits for single-family homes, townhomes, driveways, fences, accessory structures. I got to work with the Historic Preservation Commission and work on the Historic Preservation Plan and the Housing Affordability Plan. And then I also got to participate in some of the S-line studies. And I also am a current member of the Town of Mooresville Planning and Zoning Board. So what I'll be working on, the majority of my time will be spent on the transportation demand management, where I will support the transportation team's evaluation and monitoring effort on projects that reduce congestion, improve air quality, and promote more reliable and equitable transportation options. And I will also be assisting the region's metropolitan planning organizations. And I also have a family, my beautiful wife, Claire, who is amazing. And I have two children, 13-year-old daughter, Abigail, and my 9-year-old son, Ethan. We are busy just like every family. In my spare time, I love to cook, love to travel, and I love to read. And we have our new dog, Zelda, that is a boxer puppy that keeps us very busy. And I look forward to meeting all of you. And yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Josh. Next, I'm gonna give it to Hope Talley, our CFO, to introduce Roshonda.
So we've had Roshonda Page join our finance team, and she is working on accounts receivable and some payables, and also helping out in a couple of the focus areas. So I'll let her introduce herself.
There we go. Hi, Roshonda Page. Let me go for the next one. So I have 20 years experience accounts payable. I did some AP while I was in the Army. And then when I got out of the Army, I went back home to Florida, and I did 11 years at Broward County. And then I have some AP supervisor experience when I went to Nova Southeastern University. That's a private university in Broward County. And so in between my experiences in AP, I took a detour and did some contract administration, which I liked, but I kind of accounting at heart. So I decided to get back into accounting, and that's really my passion. So went my 3 years contract administration, but that's when I learned that accounting is where I'm meant to be. So here I am back in accounting. So yeah, history in the region. Back then I had no history, but now I'm 4 months in. Yeah, I'm loving it so far. Just purchased a home here, a condo. So I'm still working on getting that situated and stuff like that. But yeah, so far I love it. No regrets. Glad I made the move, and just looking forward to, learn more about North Carolina and Raleigh. What else we got? Okay, so what are we working on? Yeah. So like Hope said, I'm doing some AP, doing some AR invoices, vendor maintenance. Have the pleasure of preparing our 1099s. I can't wait till tomorrow so I can submit it and be over. And yeah, P-cards, doing some P-card processing and approving documents in Microwave. So contact information there at the bottom. And in my spare time, I haven't been doing a lot of the reading, cooking, watching TV, or exercising, or spending time with my niece because I'm organized in my home. But once I get situated, that's going to be stuff that I'm doing. And actually, my niece is coming to visit in March, so I'm going to have her here a whole week. So I'm going to be exhausted in April. And yeah, favorite kind of vacation, anything where I can just relax, pretty scenery, just enjoy myself, learn something new. And just something different. And so, oh yeah, spending my time outside of work. I forgot I was refurbishing and refinishing furniture. That was short-lived. I'm done. I hire people now. Yeah, I think that's it, right? That's all I got. Really enjoy my time here at TJCon. There's some wonderful, wonderful people, good co-workers, have made some good friends. So I'm thoroughly enjoying myself and glad to be here.
Thank you, Roshonda. Okay, so back over to Chair Freeman.
Thank you and welcome. I am going to actually ask Hope to now introduce the next item.
So we've got April Adams and Olivia Moody with us today to present on the audit.
Sorry. Presentation of the fiscal year 2021-2022 financial statements and annual audit report.
Yes, thank you.
Mike.
So just keep in mind, they're gonna present the audit. We are still working out and finalizing some details. So Lee wanted me to make sure that you guys were aware that once we send that electronic document out to you guys, that feel free to, send me any questions that you have. And then we'll make some space on the March agenda to also bring those to light if we need to do it at that time as well. But anytime in between then and now and then, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. So I'll hand it over to April.
Thanks. I'm going to kind of stand to the side so I can see the slides at the same time. All right, so I just want to remind you that we're your external auditor, so that means we work for you, the board. And I'm April Adams, I'm the engagement partner, and that means that I am signing on behalf of the firm and responsible for executing the audit and overseeing it along the way. With me tonight, though, is Olivia, and she served as the audit manager, and so that means that she is creating the audit plan with me, and then she is responsible for executing it along with the other staff and seniors. And so she's really a big integral part, and I'm thankful that she's been along the way with me. Also, we had Renee Vandermeer as our senior, and she is in a lot of the details and a lot of the testing as well. Every audit that Cherry Becker conducts, we require to be reviewed by a second partner. And so that second partner was Dan Goggerty. He's out of Charlotte. He's basically my counterpart at that level in the state. And so I typically do most of the audits on the eastern side, and he does the western side. But he was your second reviewer. And then we also are lucky to have Scott Anderson with us here in North Carolina as well, but he is the firm technical specialist as far as government audits go. And so he was there if we need him. What I'd like to cover with you today, or Olivia and I will cover with you tonight, is one, the results of the audit itself, as well as the single audit. And then just talk briefly about internal controls and how those are a part of our audit and how we report on them. Then we'll talk about any adjusting journal entries that were discovered or noted during the audit. And then we've got a whole bunch of required communications. So the audit standards that we perform the audit under require us to tell you a bunch of information that is a part of the audit or may have occurred during the year that you might want to consider along with the audit results. And then we got other matters, which is really just more information about how our opinion covers throughout the report. And then just want to talk briefly about some upcoming audit standards that will affect the financial reporting in the future. All right, so most importantly, the results of the audit. We are going to date the report today. And we did conduct your audit under the generally accepted auditing standards, as well as the government auditing standards, as you are considered to be a government entity. So we issued what we call unmodified opinions. And I guess I should say we issued 4 separate opinions for the council. One is for each of the audit standards that we conducted the audit under, and then we issued 2 separate ones for the compliance related to the single audit. But all 4 of those we consider to be unmodified opinions. So that is also known as a clean opinion. That is the highest level of assurance we can give you as an audit firm that your financial statements are free from material misstatement, as well as in compliance with state statutes that are applicable as far as accounting wise, and then compliance with the federal and state dollars that we audited as major programs. All right, so single audit. We audited the highway planning and construction cluster and the aging cluster along with the state aging funds. We consider those to be the major programs this year. And so what we were doing was auditing the 14 different compliance requirements that are direct to material. So there may be some that apply to those programs, but we looked for and tested for the ones that were considered to be direct to material. And I guess I should say there was no findings, so that's where that unmodified opinion comes along the way for the single audit. So when it comes to internal controls, our opinion, we don't actually opine on internal controls, but the audit standards require us to do a lot of work for internal controls and then report if we found any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses as a part of that work, we would report that to you. And so what we do is we identify the significant transaction cycles. So that's things like, how does the organization receive cash? How does the organization disperse cash? does payroll get paid? And then finally, how does the information not only get in the financial system, but how does it get out of the system and into the actual financial statements themselves? We call that the financial close. And so what we do is we get all the policies and procedures related to those transaction cycles, and then we are looking and reviewing those for key controls, making sure that there's a sound and control environment. From there, we can decide if we actually want to test a full sample of those key controls and rely upon them as a part of our assurance. And so we do that on a rotational basis for payroll controls and cash disbursements. Report that we didn't report any deficiencies related to any of the controls that we looked at. So those are the best results that you can get. All right, so next I'm going to just talk about journal entries. And so from the time that we are provided a trial balance and start the audit, we are, I term it as we're on the clock for reporting anything that was identified as a part of our audit procedures identified by us that might need to change within that financial statement or trial balance in order for the financial statements to be materially correct. And so we can break that down to two different types of journal entries. The first type is corrected misstatements. And so that means that we agree that we need to make those corrections in order for the financial statements to be materially correct. And we're required as your auditors to report those entries that get made. So the first one is to basically just accrue for the payroll that happened just at year end. So everybody in the organization works a couple of days before year end, and then they work a couple of days after, and that's when they get paid for that full allotment of time. Basically, we just didn't have the exact right cutoff at year end. So part of that payroll had to be accrued back into 2022 that was paid after. The next adjustment has to do with some funds that Wake County provided right there at the end of June. And basically what happened is it was reported straight in as revenue because this organization in particular is used to receiving grant dollars as a reimbursement. So usually the organization spends the money and then gets reimbursed. So it's just an unusual way to record revenue in this situation because the money was provided up front before it is actually spent and considered earned. And so what we did was just recommend a journal entry to basically take it back out of revenue because it's not quite earned yet. It's not earned until you spend it because Wake County would want that money back if you didn't spend it. So we made that entry. So now it's sitting in cash and sitting in a liability versus sitting in a revenue in your equity. And then the last corrected entry has to do with OPEB. I'm sure you're aware that during the transition of the finance officer that it was discovered that we didn't have the right people on board at the bank to be able to make transactions with the OPEB trust. And so that took some time to correct. And that entry got recorded in the books, but didn't actually happen at the bank until July or August. So we reversed that back out. But it will be made, and you'll see hopefully double the contributions the next year. And then as far as uncorrected misstatements, this is where a journal entry is discovered, but we talk about whether we actually needs to be booked or not for the statements to be materially correct. And if it's small enough that it doesn't need to be, but it's not trivial, it's not, it's a small amount that absolutely no one would care about, we are required to bring that to your attention. And so this one is another tricky situation. In the past, the council has recorded unrecorded revenue, which is kind of a similar situation to the Wake County funds. So you guys have been not recording revenue that was received in prior years, saying, hey, it's not earned yet. We've got the cash, but it's not earned. So you've got this amount that you've been recording. And with the change of personnel in the finance department, we discovered that maybe those dollars really have been earned in the past and shouldn't have been not yet recorded. And so basically they are recorded in the current year, but technically were earned in prior years. And so we are saying basically there is a uncorrected misstatement because you've got revenues in the current year that really belong in the prior year. But for accounting's sake, it's easier just to leave it there and move on because you end at the end of the year all in the right place. Hopefully I didn't confuse too many people with those explanations, but tricky accounting stuff. And now I think I'm going to turn it over to Olivia to go over some required communications.
So as April mentioned, there are certain required communications we have to give every year. And if you've been on the board of Triangle J for a while, you are probably going to recognize some of these. It's just different in how we're communicating this year in a presentation instead of a letter. So you will no longer see a separate letter come from us. And the first just is really that management's responsible for the accounting policies that are used, responsible for selecting them and ensuring they're used consistently. And I'm happy to report that was the same this year. There were no issues noted. There was a change, and this was required, a change in accounting standard for GASB 87, and this relates to leases. So in the past, you only saw leases have an income statement effect as kind of a rent expense. Now you don't see that anymore. You will see a related asset and liability with the asset that you are leasing, so the building that you're leasing. Other than that, we didn't, well, not to say that's inappropriate. We noted no inappropriate accounting policies. All right. The next big part is during all of our procedures, we're looking through for related parties that we knew of, but then any that we didn't know of before we began our audit to make sure they're in accordance with council policies and that they have a reasonable business purpose and that they don't trigger any non-compliance issues. So I'm happy to report there were no new related parties that we weren't aware of before, and all did appear to have a reasonable purpose. Maybe. Did you turn it on? Maybe. There you go. Okay. Apologies. The next big thing we like to talk about is if there's any significant transactions or those we call significant and unusual. And this is just also really where there's a lack of authoritative guidance. I'm happy to report there were none of those situations during the year. But the funding from Wake County that April mentioned earlier, it was a little different for you all. It's not a normal grant. So we just felt it reasonable to point out that you did receive the money in June. I believe it was very, very near the end of the month, and they weren't all spent. So that's why you have an influx of cash at the end of the year. The biggest piece here is your accounting estimates. So within your financial statements, there are some numbers that are based on management estimates. And these are strongly based on historical things that have happened and then future expectations. So I will admit there's a chance that there could be differences in future results versus these estimates, but it's minimal. The biggest estimates for Triangle J relate to your allowance for doubtful accounts. And then for fixed assets, the depreciable lives and the depreciation expense and accumulated depreciation with those. And then getting into payroll related items, the accrued compensation expense at the end of the year, and then your pension and your OPEB, not liability, your pension and OPEB expenses at the end of the year. And your liabilities, I apologize. And then with those, it's not on here, we should add that, but the deferred inflows and outflows related to your pension and your OPEB are also significant estimates as well.
Could you define OPEB for me?
I can, I'm sorry, your other post-employment benefit plan.
Okay,
So basically the health insurance for your retirees.
thank you.
Yeah. And the last significant estimate for your statements is very similar to your fixed assets, but it's for your leases. And it's those estimated useful lives and the estimated incremental borrowing rates that are used in the calculations to determine the asset and liability balances. That's a lot of significant estimates, but again, they're all based on historical information and what is expected in the future. I'm happy to report the financial statement disclosures. They did change a little bit from last year, but they were consistent with changes in accounting policies, and they were neutral and clear this year as well. We do the audit for Triangle J, but during this, we also perform a few different functions. So we help with the writing of the financial statements. And then at the end of the audit, we will help with the submission of your federal grant information to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse, and that's through the data collection form. It's just a process we help with. But through all of this, we have to maintain our independence. So we do that by designating an employee at the organization to take ultimate responsibility and ownership for these things. So through this, we're happy to report that we did maintain our independence, or we feel we did, and there were no other threats that we noted during this process. These next two slides, I'm probably going to be faster than anything else because you want these to have no issues. So it's really if we ever have disagreements with management or if we notice any other consultations, we're required to report those. So I'm happy to report there were no difficulties encountered dealing with management. There were no disagreements. There were no instances where we noted that we consulted another auditor or that management consulted another auditor. All of this information and some other representations regarding information provided and things of that sort are included in a representation letter that we get from management and have them sign, and it will have today's date, the same date as your report date. And again, we're happy to say management, it did not appear that they had any outside consultations. There were no other findings. There were no fraud or illegal acts that we determined. And then we're happy to report there's no indication of a going concern for the organization within the next 12 months. I'll pass it back to people to wrap up.
All right, so these two blocks are basically just informing you that there are certain parts of the financial statements that you'll receive that we don't give our full outright opinion on. And so we felt it was important to bring that to your attention. So for the supplementary information, those are the schedules that you will see that come after the footnotes, where they're breaking down further financial information into further detail from what's in the basic statements that are in front of the footnotes. And so the type of opinion that we give on that is what we call an in relation to opinion. So what we're saying is that we have looked at the supporting documentation for those schedules and they reconcile up to the front because we opine on the front. And so we call it in relation opinion. And then as far as the required supplementary information, that is the management discussion and analysis that you will find in front of the basic financial statements and the required supplementary information schedules, which are the schedules that give you 10-year information on the retirement plans and the OPEB plan. And so we don't actually opine on those particular pieces of the report at all. What we do is read them and make sure that they don't contradict any of the information that we do opine on within the statement. So just making you aware of that stuff. And then lastly, the LGC, which is the Local Government Commission, does have some performance indicators of concern that they monitor, and they do it for all different types of organizations across the state, but they do have a set of performance indicators that they want us to look at specifically for councils of government. And we are required as your auditor to inform you if any of those are clicked on basically or noted as an indicator. And one of them is that the audit was not submitted within 5 months from June 30th. And so all government audits in the state are due at least by December 1st if their year end is June 30th. Given the turnover that you've had in your finance department over the last year, it took a little longer to get it together. Along with our workload, we actually scheduled the audit after the October 31st deadline to even get started. So it's on all of us that it's not done, but we will be making plans to get back on track for next year. But with that, it does require you, the board, to submit a written response as to why the audit was late and what your intentions are to get it back on track in the future. So that is due 6 days from today. That's my responsibility to let you know. All right, and last slide here on the upcoming reporting changes. I'm not going to go into detail on all of these, but I do think it's fair to just bring them to your attention that they're GASB, which is the reporting standards board that puts together different financial reporting standards that we have to report on or use to report. And so I just wanted to bring GASB 96 to your attention because that is the standard that's similar to leases, where this year we brought on those the lease for the building as a capital asset and a liability. We will be bringing on where you're leasing software, essentially. We'll be bringing those leases on as well in the same manner in next fiscal year. And then also GASB 101 compensated absences. This is going to be an interesting standard as it comes out in the next 2 years for us to implement a much bigger estimate to create it. Basically, where currently your sick leave is not recorded as a liability, we will be estimating what that is, or management will be estimating what that is. We'll be auditing it. And so just imagine trying to come up with what that number would be in the future. You know, you have to look at some historical trends on exactly how much sick leave is actually taken and used, et cetera. So we'll be working on that ahead of 2025 to make sure we get that right. And I'll be glad to take any questions.
Did you all submit a recommended reply to the LGC or not?
We have
Did
not.
you write the letter, or did you write the letter? Or what?
Usually in most cases, management will write the letter and then get you guys to sign it. It doesn't have to be a very in-depth explanation, but basically I just want to have something to, one, make sure that the board is aware that the deadline was missed, and two, that they're on board with supporting a correction.
And the extension of their contract is also a part of that. It's just extending the time of the contract to complete it. And I've been in contact with Susan McCullen as soon as this came up about shifting the audit timeline. And so they're fully aware and not going to be surprised by it at all.
And I think Kathleen has a question.
And just to clarify, if I understood correctly, you were saying that revenue recognition previously was when revenue came in the door or when payment came in the door, and now we are basing revenue recognition on when it's actually burned?
Okay, you're actually doing it both ways. So it just depends on the grant flow. So aging is your biggest grant source, right? Aging is on a reimbursement basis. Every month you're submitting your expenses and being reimbursed. It just happens to be that this Wake County grant is significant for you guys, and it's the opposite. They're going to give you the money, but you haven't incurred the expenditures yet.
Yeah, we haven't burned it yet.
That's right. So you're going to be doing it both ways, and it was just that this revenue is different than most of the revenue that flows through the organization.
Okay. Does it make, and this may be a question totally offline. Does it make sense to book revenue when it comes in the door versus when it, recognizing it when it's burned?
Well, you are recognizing it. Let me phrase that a different way. You are recognizing it as you spend it because you're recording a receivable.
Okay, that's what I'm getting at. Okay,
yes.
Thank you.
Yes. I feel like everybody's in accounting class tonight.
Just checking if there are other questions.
I would just make a comment. I appreciate the work you've done, and I commend the staff and everybody who worked on this. A little bit of an unusual year with some issues within the finance department, but when all is said and done, we have a clean audit that speaks well of the organization. So congratulations.
Thank you. And I just want to echo that Rashonda Page, Hope Tally, Kayla Register, and Nancy Medlin, who is not here, are all new to the organization. We've had 100% turnover in our finance staff. It has not been a fun 6 months or so, but we've done it, and big kudos to those folks sitting over there. And thank you, Olivia.
And I want to just echo both Ken and Jenny, and just acknowledging that all of it has had to happen under the leadership of both Lee and Jenny. And it has been an incredibly difficult year, the last 2 years. So yes, thank you. And I'm going to move us along. Thank you. So we have now we have Hope Tally and the transportation and mobility focus area update.
We'll switch it to Matt Day as our transportation director. Yeah. You don't want Hope talking about
We're going to go back to accounting class.
So I'm here tonight just to kind of give everybody a quick sort of overview and refresher on all the work that we're doing in our transportation focus area. Just because I know that a lot of the work we do is kind of in the background and you may not be aware of it. So wanted to make sure you were sort of aware of what all we were doing. We kind of look at our role in transportation in this region, mainly around the issue of coordination. So for the most part, we are not the ones who are in the position of making any decisions about anything. But we work with the various agencies and entities that make those decisions and help them work with each other on sort of larger regional issues. And so we spend a lot of time on sort of support and guidance for those other activities and looking at it in that broader context. So, like I said, most of the work we do is with partners. And so there's a few like really big partners that are the main folks we work with. There are the metropolitan planning organizations in the region. Those are the Capital Area MPO, which covers Wake County and kind of the eastern half of the region. And then the Durham, Chapel Hill, Carrboro MPO, which covers Durham and Orange and Chatham counties. There's a really tiny little piece of the Burlington Graham MPO that also crosses into Orange County, and we have to coordinate with them on air quality issues. And then, so the MPOs cover the urban side of transportation planning. And then on the rural side, we have something called RPOs, or rural planning organizations. We have one that's actually housed here at Triangle J. Carol Fuller, who works on our staff, is the administrator of that program. That RPO works with Orange, Chatham, Lee, and Moore counties. And then Johnston County is actually part of a separate RPO that is operated out of Nash County, I believe. They're in the Upper Coastal Plain RPO. We also do a lot of work with transit agencies, especially a lot of coordination work with Go Triangle, and a lot of coordination with NCDOT, as you would expect. And this map that's on the screen kind of explains why coordination is necessary. So this black outline, that is the Triangle J boundary. And each of these different colors that's on here is a different MPO or RPO. And you can see there's a lot of them in our region. Boundaries don't make a whole lot of sense. And they don't match up with DOT's boundaries either, which are the sort of red dashed lines on here. So there's a lot of, somebody needs to be making sure that these folks are working together. And to kind of throw a wrench in things, these boundaries are likely to change again here in the next year or so. They're updated after every census. And so, yeah, within the next year, they'll probably be changing again. So one of the big programs that we do is what we call our Regional Transportation Coordination Program. And really what that is us working with the two main MPOs in this region. So with Campo and DCHC, as well as with Go Triangle. All three of those groups come together to provide us funding. And then what we do is mainly working with them on development of a joint long-range metropolitan transportation plan. So those two MPOs work together on a joint plan, and we take a role in terms of helping to facilitate that work. We also are responsible for some of the specific technical pieces of it. So we do the growth forecasts that go into the travel model. We work on the fiscal constraint forecasts in terms of how much money they're likely to have to be able to spend in their plan. We actually sort of put the plan document together. And we also are in charge of coordinating the air quality conformity analysis, which is a technical thing I'm not gonna bore you with. We also do a lot of work with, a couple times a year, the MPOs usually get together and do a joint MPO board meeting. So we have a role in terms of coordinating and facilitating those meetings and making sure that the agendas and that they're getting scheduled and those types of things. And we also coordinate the Intelligent Transportation System work group for the region. We also have some sort of spin-off projects that come up every now and then that are specific to a project. So we did last year work on doing land use and affordable housing analysis related to the commuter rail study that's underway. I'm sure you've heard about that. So, you know, we had a role in doing sort of a piece of the technical work that went into that. And just to give you an example of probably what is our biggest individual product that we work on under that program, this is the work that goes into our growth forecasts. We have a model that we operate called Community Biz, where we basically take every parcel in the region and we figure out what kind of development could happen on that parcel. And then we have this model that tells us where the growth is likely to happen in the future. So this screen is, well, now it's showing where the growth will be in 2050, but then the other view is where it is currently. So that we spend a lot of time and effort on, you know, creating that map basically. On the rural side of things, it's a little bit different because we are actually the ones running the RPO. But that RPO, it has a very significant role in terms of planning for transportation projects in those rural counties. So working with NCDOT on developing 20 to 30 year long range transportation plans, as well as working with local areas on their plans, which are usually bicycle, pedestrian, or transit, or those types of things, as well as doing corridor studies. And then probably the biggest role for the RPO is this one here, funding prioritization and project development. So NCDOT has this very complex process for how projects get submitted and scored and selected for funding. And the RPO has a very key role in sort of shepherding projects through that process. And then obviously they also serve as sort of a liaison and then administrative kind of role. Our biggest project in terms of sort of money, because we have a large amount of pass-through money in this program, is our Triangle Transportation Choices project. This is, you might hear this referred to as TDM or Travel Demand Management, but this is a program that is looking at essentially encouraging ways to encourage the use of anything other than a single occupant car. So encouraging transit use, encouraging other modes, encouraging teleworking, all of those types of things. And what our role is basically to sort of pool all the funding together. So we get some funding from the MPOs as well as from NCDOT. We pool the funding together and then put out a call for projects from individual agencies such as transit agencies, municipalities, various folks that actually provide on the ground services. So our role is more of an administrative role. So this is mostly pass-through money, but it is about $3 million a year. It's pretty sizable. Oh, it's 3 million total. This one's 2 million. It's 3 million for the whole transportation budget. And then we also have our program that Annie, who you heard from earlier, works on, Triangle Clean Cities. This is a program that is focused on sort of education and outreach activities, primarily related to alternative fuel vehicles, electric vehicles, those types of issues. And then our last sort of program that I want to highlight is our Safe Routes to School program. This is a relatively smaller program. We've been doing it for the last 3 years. Actually, in your consent agenda, you have an item with a resolution to support us applying for an additional 3 years of funding. But this is a program where we work with local schools and school districts on activities to promote walking and biking to school and safety in terms of access to schools. And This is the transportation team. I'm not sure why. And we're happy to help you. Any questions you might have?
He's rude too.
Matt, oh, excuse me.
Go ahead.
Not finished yet. No, I was just gonna add, in the area of EVs, electric vehicles, I'd be happy to hear your comments about if this organization or this work. Is anybody talking much about, you know, what I guess I'd call the building of the infrastructure that's needed for charging electric vehicles and those kinds of things? Is that up to municipalities? I know in our town, we're putting in a couple here and there. Talk about that just for a minute.
So I am by no means the expert on this. The expert would be Sean, who is our transportation and energy program manager, and then Annie, who worked with our Clean Cities program. But I think the basic answer is yes, that we can help support those kinds of things. I don't know the details on sort of how.
Okay, all right. We'll get back to you.
Matt, I know there's a lot of federal money coming in from the infrastructure law and the Inflation Reduction Act. And I saw federal funding on your list, but it was kind of a bullet point. I mean, how much activity is going on in your department as far as like helping municipalities and counties and planning organizations kind of make the best applications for all that federal funding that's coming in the next like 5 years?
So I might kind of lean on Linda here a little bit.
I'm sorry, I was looking at my phone, so I didn't think I was going to an answer. Can you?
The federal funding coming in from the Inflation Act and the
Yeah.
infrastructure one, like, what kind of coordination and like to put our best foot forward as far as getting that money to the Triangle J region? What are we doing in that respect?
It's a great question. So there's two things we're trying to do. So one is that there is a lot of funding coming down. Some of it, I think, in the transportation space is a little bit less competitive. So Matt probably could talk to this a little bit, that there's some funding, at least in the infrastructure law, that is mostly going towards MPOs in the state. But then there are some competitive programs that we are trying to make sure all of our local governments are aware of, things that are related to bridges and railroad crossings and things like that. So we do provide pretty regular updates to managers. We also have our grant assistance program, which is something you have to opt into, but that's where we basically provide comprehensive assistance to municipalities that want our help applying for those grants. But if there's specific thoughts on how we could coordinate better, at this point, it's really been information sharing and making sure everyone's aware of what's going on.
Has there been efforts as far as like multiple municipalities or county and a municipality together applying for something and beyond just awareness?
There has been some of that. So we had a joint application last round. I think there was 5 municipalities involved that's all submitted together for the Safe Roads for All, is I think what it's called. So it's just an example. So we have had some initial coordination. I will say this last round was probably too fast for most municipalities to get coordination on board for. So I think the funding was announced and was rolled out in about 2 months and was asking for these massive bridge projects and things like that. So I think it's very likely for the next round. So we're hoping that we can have as much coordination as possible for those that are willing and open to coordination.
Thanks.
I think there's one more question online. Unless that's a previous hand raised. Kathleen, did you have a question?
Sorry, I forgot to lower my hand.
Oh, it's okay. Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to hand things over to Doug, who is with the Durham Menlo Harbor MPO, and he's going to talk to y'all for a few minutes about something exciting.
Very exciting, Matt.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for a wonderful dinner. I went back for seconds. I just can't resist collard greens. So.
Oh, did you have slides?
You might gotta go.
Yeah.
You have some?
Yeah, I sent you his slides.
Okay. I do have them.
No problem.
Share.
I can go ahead and talk a little bit about the beginning because it's not that important. It's just about me. So I don't nearly like people or my family as much as the other new folks you've met tonight. I do have 2 daughters. One lives in Detroit, the other one's in Germany right now. Adult daughters. They're not just randomly roaming. So I grew up in mostly in Durham, North Carolina. The first few years we were in Carrboro. And I graduated from Southern Durham High School in 1994. The privilege of going to the old Southern and the new Southern. We're the first graduating class from the new building once we left the Ellis Road site. I went on to college at UNCG where I majored in geography and interned at the city of Durham for one summer, working in the very program that now I'm leading in 1995. And I also interned for about 6 months in the town of Knightdale at the end of 1999, kind of that winter. Ended up moving to Michigan. I worked for lots of local planning organizations, cities, towns. They have villages and townships up there. And I ended up splitting my career to date between those local planning and zoning entities and MPOs. So I have MPO planning experience in Michigan and Massachusetts. I worked in Western Massachusetts for about 5 years. It was pretty awesome. And also in Michigan, and I have local planning experience in Michigan, Virginia, and North Carolina. So that's pretty much all this boring stuff says about me. The exciting thing is I can navigate around a little bit without GPS all the time. And I'm really glad to be here. So yeah, now am I able to advance?
Mm-hmm. You're good.
So as Matt already outlined, this is our MPO boundary. The MPO is a federally created entity for urban areas with 50,000 population or more. We fall into an enhanced class of metropolitan planning organizations called traffic management areas, where we have more than 200,000 residents. Right now, we're over 500,000. So collectively, between our boundaries and the Capital Metropolitan Planning Organization, we have about 2 million people. That's a lot of folks moving around. Our board is comprised of lots of people you know, some people that are on this call probably. There are other local elected officials. And they are advised by a technical advisory committee that's made up of staff folks from the different organizations and governments, as well as some local institutions, universities, transit providers, et cetera. Next slide, please.
Got it.
Oh, I got it now. There we go. I stuck this slide up here because somebody asked me, what does an MPO look like? And really, it's kind of all these things. We have federal partnerships, we have state partnerships. Certain times we'll have more interactions with state agencies outside of the Department of Transportation, other federal agencies. One thing that we are always working for is more public engagement in our processes. Because I don't know about y'all, but they didn't teach us about MPOs or COGS in high school civics. Nobody knew that there was this kind of, not secret, but not widely broadcasted layer of really important decision-making authority everywhere. Any place in the country that has more than 50,000 people has an MPO. Matt touched on the comprehensive transportation plan, the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. We're very thankful to be working with TJCOG on that coordination with our rural partner areas, TARPO, and the adjacent MPOs. I'm not sure that in 1995, when I worked for the city of Durham, that coordination was there. So I think that that's a real positive in this past generation. We also work a lot with our partners and members on short-range transportation programming. So what happens when a project that's funded needs to actually occur? Right now, we're focusing on incorporating non-motorized components into projects more frequently to comply with NCDOT's Safe Streets, or not Safe Streets, Complete Streets policy. And we update this program several times every year. Most of our local government partners would understand the program more as their capital improvement program for their budget. We have a transportation improvement program for the region's transportation system. We're working on a couple of corridor studies right now this year in Orange County and Durham County. Some really exciting stuff that's, incorporates public outreach, a lot of existing conditions and traditional kind of land use approaches and transportation approaches with some transportation modeling of potential configurations. In general, in the Durham side of the triangle, or Durham, Chapel, Carrboro, Hillsborough side of the triangle, we're encouraging NCDOT and our local partners to focus our energy on reducing vehicles on the road through alternative transportation. We know that not everybody can walk or bike or ride public transportation, but it's really important that we invest in those systems because they ultimately increase economic opportunity and economic stability for the region. First, ready. So.
So can you come?
Okay.
Okay. We also our system was doing that for both meetings at our place today, so it happened. We interface a lot with our partners for technical studies. Probably the biggest part of our program is the regional travel demand model. We partner with TJ Cog. Matt does a lot of great work on the land use and economic forecasts that go into that model. And we along partner with NCDOT, Go Triangle and Campo through and TJ Cog for the regional model that's housed at NC State's ITRI, Transportation Research Institute. We've been working a lot with Durham and Orange County on their transit plan updates. We're right into the thick of things with all of the discussions on commuter rail and transit funding, disposition of different revenue streams that come into county transit planning, how to get money spent. But we are reaching the end of some of those processes, and it's pretty exciting because when we're done, we've adopted a plan and we've adopted the frameworks. We can get our partner agencies spending money and delivering services to our constituents because that's really what our constituents want and need. We also provide some direct funding through us to programs that help senior and disability transportation and paratransit for some of our agencies like Chapel Transit and Orange County Transit. The exciting thing that Matt mentioned is we hope to be joining y'all. The MPO prior to hiring me, and I didn't say, I've been at the MPO 6 months. Prior to hiring me, the MPO performed a governance study. And the governance study said, you're really more of a regional entity and less of a local entity. And you're not being housed at one of your local partners worked well. That's how most of the MPOs in North Carolina have developed over years. But really, you should be a more autonomous organization. And because we are more regionally focused, we believe that we are fit best with TJ Cog. And our board also believes, because again, a lot of our board members are your board members, that we have a great synergy here at TJ Cog. And I agree. Got some great opportunities to coordinate technology, to coordinate data. We already coordinate a lot of our planning and programming systems. It's just a very natural fit with all the work that's happening here. So we've worked with TJ Cog administration on the space needs coming up. We have taken a vote at our board to begin negotiation of an agreement with TJ Cog. We will start to work with your very skilled finance department on how to unwind all of our entanglements with the city of Durham and wind them back up at TJ Cog. We've worked with Jenny and Lee on including our staff in the upcoming class and comp study and how to begin transitioning our staff people. Short term, we've had some staff departures, which are inconvenient. Long term, this gives us a chance to build a team in a new direction. And I think that that's a really valuable opportunity. And working in another member-driven service agency, it's full of regional planners and thinkers. Big difference in working for a city that's providing local direct service to residents and has 2,700 employees. But we think it's a really big opportunity to focus on regionalism, promote equity, and promote some of our board's goals of transportation, environmental protection. We also did submit a grant request for Safe Streets for All for a planning grant that will cover our areas. We're going to focus a lot over the next year on transportation, non-motorized planning and technical tools like, what are we going to do with intelligence transportation systems moving forward? And we'll probably be working on a bus corridor evaluation in Durham County, at least as the contract and consultant administrator for that process. If any of you have any other want a slightly deeper dive into what an MPO is, we are having an MPO orientation February 15th at 10 a.m. It'll be online. We will post a recording of the session afterwards. And I think we're on track. We're still on tracking towards a July 1 merger. If anybody remembers Voltron, the cartoon series, we're going to be like a Voltron of regional planning here in the Western Triangle. So it's really exciting. This wasn't something that the board told me when they brought me in for interview and hired me. I kind of found out about it a month later after I left my other job and started this one. But who wants to step into something that just kind of does business as usual? This is a really exciting opportunity for our organizations, our members, our constituents to be a part of the next step in the evolution and do some really exciting work for our folks. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer. I know we're running short on time. Well, not too much.
Yeah,
we still got a minute. So I think the next item is leaning in towards our.
I will provide a little bit more detail on
awesome.
The news that I just shared with everybody. Any questions for Matt or Doug?
I have one question. What was I think it was the garden.
Oh, traffic garden?
Yeah.
It's basically an event to teach kids how to safely ride their bikes.
Oh, cool.
Those are a lot. My kids, I actually do really enjoy being around. My favorite projects to work on are non-motorized projects because they're accessible to everyone. They're usually around recreation resources, parks, to connect places. That's definitely exciting.
Thank you.
It's up here.
Yeah, I think we're good for the rest.
Well, thank you. And appreciate the presentation. And I'm excited about this Voltron situation as we move forward. We're going to move to our consent agenda.
We have one more item quickly before the consent.
One more item.
Yes, sorry. So I just wanted, this is on the consent agenda, but I did want to just talk about it in case there are any questions. So as Doug just mentioned, July 1, they will be co-locating with us in this space. So that is 11 new employees with Triangle J. So they will have Triangle J benefits, IT, all of that. They will be treated just like they are ours. We have decided, both agencies, that if DCHC needs to hire somebody between tomorrow and June 30th, that would be better suited for them to just start as TJ-COG employees rather than fully on board with the city of Durham, get into a benefit system, get into an IT infrastructure, only to have to undo that and redo all of that for July 1. And so that's what this item on the agenda is for. And so in order to do that, we need you all to adopt the DCHC pay and classification plan. You guys adopt our pay and classification plan anytime we add a position that's new, you guys would adopt that. So essentially tonight is adopting all the different positions for DCHC so that if we do need to hire between tomorrow and June 30th, that we have the authority to do that. Yes.
Hire 5 people maybe.
Yes,
Tomorrow and
he says he's had some retirements and some resignations, so they really need this for business continuity. But that way we'll go ahead and get them onboarded, like I said, with our human resources and IT items. And then July 1, the DCHC employees that are now housed at the city of Durham will transfer over to Triangle J. So I'm happy to take any questions on that. And their pay in class is an attachment in the agenda. And Doug is here as well. So if you have any questions, we're happy to take them.
I think it's helpful to just say that we've been having this conversation, I think the last few meetings, and we're finally getting to this point. And I think it's a good addition to have, not starting 2 different ITs or 2 emails or setting up business cards, have you? That's increased cost, so makes sense.
So Jenny, I have a question just about like, how does that work? So we're all in the same house together, but we're separate families, like.
Yes, we will talk to staff more about all of that as in the coming months. Yeah, yes.
Now, I think we'll set up, we've sort of begun discussing how to transition. We have a great example because the capital area MPO just moved out of the city of Raleigh and moved to the town of Cary. So, we have a model of what worked well and what did not work so well.
Got it.
But definitely, yeah, what conversations, we'll set up sort of a transition team that has, the per day units, both for our functionality and then with transportation on how our work program will.
And you being on finance will definitely be included in that because HR and finance will be supporting both organizations. So you're working through all those details. But good question, Rashawn. So with that, Chair Freeman, I think you can go to consent agenda.
Thank you. And I appreciate the explanation or a little bit deep dive into that explanation. For item 1 on our consent agenda, we have sole source approval for contracts for city explained for community viz model improvements. Item 2, board resolution to support TJ-COG's grant application to the NCDOT Integrated Mobility Division's Safe Routes to Schools 2023 to 25 funding cycle. Budget Amendment 6, once we were just talking, acceptance of fiscal year 21-22 financial statements and annual audit reports, and approval of contract extensions. Next item is resolution in support of the application to the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality's Division of Water Resources Development Grant for state and local projects for the Nancy Branch Marsalis Way Culvert feasibility study, and adoption of the Durham Chapel Hill Carborough Metropolitan Planning Organization's pay and classification plan, which is attached, and the October Board of Delegates meeting. Any items to be removed?
Chair Freeman, move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you.
And this is Kathleen Ferguson speaking.
Is there a second?
This is Susan Evans. I'll second.
Thank you, Susan Evans. And Chantel, if you'll do a roll call vote.
Okay, thank you. This for consent agenda items listed. Also Whispering Pines, you are now a voting member. I will call the jurisdiction, 1 vote per jurisdiction. Aberdeen.
Bill Mullaney votes aye.
Anger.
Bob Smith votes aye.
Apex.
Brett Gant, aye.
Archer Lodge. Benson.
Aye.
Broadway.
Broadway votes aye.
Cameron. Carborough. Carthage. Cary.
Jennifer Robinson votes aye.
Chapel Hill. Chatham County. Clayton. Durham.
City of Durham, Deidreana Freeman votes aye.
Durham County.
Heidi Carter votes aye.
Fuquay Varina. Garner.
Ken Marshman, we vote aye.
Goldston. Hillsborough.
Kathleen Ferguson, Hillsborough votes aye.
Holly Springs.
Holly Springs votes aye.
Johnson County.
Butch Lauder votes aye.
Kenley. Nightdale.
Nightdale Jessica Day, aye.
Lee County.
Bill Carter, aye.
Micro. Moore County. Mooresville. Orange County.
Aye. Bedford.
Pine Level. Pinehurst.
Pinehurst votes aye.
Pittsboro.
Pittsboro, Pamela Baldwin, aye.
Princeton. City of Raleigh. Robbins. Roseville. Sanford.
Rebecca Salmon, Sanford, aye.
Roseville, I do have you. And Sanford, I do have you. Selma.
Byron McAllister, aye.
Siler City. Smithville.
Indy
Southern-
Moore, aye.
Southern Pine. Bass. Wake County.
Susan Evans, aye.
Forest. Wendell.
Joe DeLoach, Wendell, aye.
Wilson's Mills.
David McGowan, Wilson's Mills, aye.
Zebulon. Is there anyone that I may have missed? Anyone in the waiting room? Okay.
And Whispering Pines, Linda Vandercook is aye.
Wait. And I literally, okay.
That's all right.
Welcome.
Thank
you. Okay.
Chantel, I think Mark Wilson was, I think he was muted. I don't know if he got in there or not, but.
Okay.
Zebulon was aye as well.
Okay. Okay. All right. All right, one last check. Okay. All right, okay, let me go over. And we do have a vote.
Thank you. I know that we still hold a quorum, and I'm thankful that you all. I do want to thank you for being incredibly flexible around my not being in person and this being virtual. And I want to thank Jenny and Chantel for making this work. I want to move forward to the executive director's report, and I'm assuming, Jenny, you have some
I do.
items.
Yes, thank you. So first, Lee sends his best. He is en route back from DC right now. He has been up at the National Association of Regional Councils Conference all week. He's been texting me though through this meeting from the airport. So he did want me to share with you that he had a very productive day. He went to every senator and rep's office today on Capitol Hill. So yes, I think he's been busy. I told him I would run a board meeting any day over Capitol Hill. So really just wanted to give you guys a quick space update. I know we've talked about this for several months. We do have some new board members, but just to kind of give you a quick recap, our lease expires here at the end of July. The past several months, we and I have been looking into a lot of different options in the RTP area. We were presented out to the executive committee in December that, we thought we were very close on a deal in an RTP location. That negotiation fell through about 3 weeks ago. Due to the tenant, current tenant just not wanting to leave, even though they did want to leave. So we were going to be taking over, or they were going to get out of that lease early, and that situation did not happen. So we have gone back to Tri Properties, our current landlord here, who also had a very nice deal for us as well, and are in final contract negotiations with them. I expect in the next week or two. We will have that done. So we will renovate this current space as well as occupy suites 140, which is that suite right next door that looks like it's under construction already, because it is. And then the first suite, when you walk into our buildings, will become the large 100-person conference room that we were planning on having at the RTP location. Anyway, so the RTP location was about 20,000 square feet. So the combination of these three spaces will get us roughly the same square footage and the same, space needs that the other location was going to. We are adding 11 new staff, and this room would not fit our entire board if we had everybody in person tonight. So we have needed a larger room for a while. So we will keep you guys posted as things progress. This may be the last meeting in this room, this last board meeting, because it is moving very rapidly now. The architect's already doing draft plans. And so we could be under construction or out of this space by March or end of March. So by the next full board meeting, we are working with Tri Properties of where staff will go temporarily. We believe we can easily move into suite 130, still do hybrid work like we currently do, and then let them kind of construct these two suites to be one suite and flip flop. But we're working on all those details. But this might be the last time you see this room. So that's all I have. I will throw it back to Chair Freeman.
Thank you. And I will say my report will be very brief. It will be just thanking staff for getting us through this whole process around finding space. I want to say a big thank you to Lee and to Jenny and to the rest of the staff. I know that this quick switch in the last 3 weeks has been a lot. And so just making sure that the rest of the board knows and understands that they have been diligently working on this and keeping us very abreast of what's going on. And so we just want to be supportive and making sure we're moving forward in the right direction, acknowledging that this space has been where we've been, and we'll make it work. Thank you. That's all I have. And the next item on our agenda is to look around the region, and I will let it popcorn as it needs to. See that we still have 29 folks still on the call, and all of you in the room. So I'm looking for raised hands. Jenny, help me out. If anyone wants to share any updates from around the region. If we don't have raised hands, oh, nope, I see Jennifer Robinson.
Hey, everybody. I had the pleasure of attending the National Association of Regional Councils Conference with Lee over the last couple of days. And it was a really productive conference. I would encourage you, if you are a person who is interested in understanding better the federal, what's going on in the federal government, to attend this conference next year. There's also a conference that will happen in June, and it is they always run like the greatest conferences. I've assembled some notes, which I will clean up and pass over to the staff for them to disseminate so that people can get an idea of what was discussed. But it was everything from how transportation and housing can be done in coordination so that we don't have kind of some of the transportation disasters that happened in the past, and how HUD and USDOT are working together to accomplish that. EV charging and EV vehicles and government programs that are promoting that, the Supreme Court, and so on and so on. It's a very useful conference. So I just encourage you all to take a look at that, the content of that conference if you have a chance.
Thank you. That's awesome. And looking around. I'm not seeing additional hands rising up. And around the room, Jenny?
I guess I have one.
Got one, Apex.
Apex, yeah. Starting next Tuesday, so before COVID hit, Apex hosted some of our neighboring municipalities, Cary and Holly Springs in particular, Wake County commissioners and some of our house reps for dinner on our like the 5th Tuesday of the month. We usually did it. That got messed up during COVID, but we're back to meet with Holly Springs next. Tim, I think on the call next Tuesday, and excited to kind of get that back in the swing of things. The regionalness of those kind of meetings, it's been really great. So if you guys aren't doing that, I think I'd encourage you guys to try to meet with your counterparts nearby, because I found it to be really productive conversations we've had in the past.
I look forward to it.
Great.
I think there's another hand raised.
Jeff's iPhone.
Yeah, and I'm from Pinehurst. So just want to throw a shout out to Whispering Pines and another Moore County town here joining. I appreciate that very much. And just wanted to comment that here in Pinehurst, we've got the US Open coming in 2024. A lot of activities preparing for that. That brings a tremendous amount of revenue, not just for Pinehurst, not just for Moore County, but for the entire area as people come in through the airports, and it's a huge event. And then also a prelude to the 2029 US Open, which will be here in Pinehurst. And this is going to be the second time that we do the men's US Open directly followed by the women's US Open. We are the only place that's ever done that before. And when we did that, it was a tremendous boon for women's golf. And so we're trying to do that again and advance women's golf with this and bring folks in there. But anyway, Moore County is still progressing on there and trying to do our part for the entire region and developing the economy. So just want to give that out. That's all I got. Thanks.
That's helpful. Thank you. And golf on the rise. I'm looking around again, just making sure I don't want to cut anyone out. Wants to give them updates.
Yeah, this is Wilma. I just wanted to mention that Aberdeen is going to get 2 golf courses, and we're really excited about that. It's going to do a lot for the county, and it's going to really we're really looking for it. Aberdeen is a great place to live. So I'm happy about that. And I want to say congratulations to Whispering Pines. I'm glad they're with us.
Yes. Moore County is filling in. If there's nothing else, I'm not seeing any other hands, and we don't have any other items. I am going to call this meeting adjourned, and thank you all for being on this evening, and we will see you again the next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good
Thank
night.
you.
Have a good night.
Good night.